Everyone thinks they know Marilyn Monroe, but almost no one asks what it cost her to become Hollywood's most misunderstood woman. She was born Norma Jeane, and she was shuffled through nearly a dozen foster homes. She was forced into marriage at 16 just to avoid the orphanage. Her survival depended on pleasing others, but nobody asks how those childhood lessons shaped the icon. That answer changes everything about the woman you thought you knew. Norma Jeane Mortensen entered the world on June 1st, 1926 in Los Angeles. She was born to a mother who struggled with mental illness and could not provide a stable home. Before she could walk, she was placed with foster parents Albert and Ida Bollender in Hawthorne. Their house became her first memory of belonging. But even there, security was always temporary. Gladys, her mother, visited on weekends, sometimes promising to take her home, only to vanish again. The Bollenders wanted to adopt Norma Jeane, but Gladys refused, keeping her daughter in limbo. By age 7, Norma Jeane was moved back in with Gladys in Hollywood. The reunion was short-lived. Gladys suffered a breakdown and was committed to a state hospital in January 1934. Overnight, Norma Jeane became a ward of Los Angeles County, her life dictated by court papers and welfare case files. She was shuffled through a series of foster homes and brief stays with family friends. Each move was triggered by adult decisions, marriages, divorces, lost jobs, none of which she controlled. The lack of control shaped her early years. In these houses, affection was conditional. She learned to read the room, to be cheerful or quiet, to do chores without being asked, hoping it would make her less likely to be sent away. In September 1935, she entered the Los Angeles Orphans' Home Society. The orphanage was clean and orderly, but it was also cold. Days were ruled by bells, chores, and silence. Letters and later interviews recall the emotional distance of dormitory life. No hugs, no private space, just rows of beds and the knowledge that she was one of many. Norma Jeane stayed there for nearly 2 years until her mother's friend, Grace McKee, became her legal guardian. Even then, the moves continued, sometimes to relatives, sometimes to strangers. Between the ages of 8 and 16, she lived in at least a dozen different homes. Each goodbye reinforced a lesson. To be wanted, she had to please. To survive, she had to perform. For a child, love was never guaranteed, only borrowed, and always at risk of being taken away. At 16, Norma Jeane faced a crossroads no teenager should have to navigate. The Goddards, her guardians, were moving across the country for work, but California law would not let them take a ward of the state out of Los Angeles. The alternative was clear and terrifying: another return to the orphanage. In that moment, security became a matter of paperwork and signatures, not affection. Grace Goddard arranged a solution with the neighbor boy down the street, James Dougherty, a steady, soft-spoken factory worker 5 years older than her. On June 19, 1942, Norma Jeane became Mrs. Dougherty. The marriage license listed her age as 16. Photographs from that day show a shy bride in borrowed lace, her smile careful, her eyes uncertain. She left high school behind and moved into a small apartment with her new husband. For Norma Jeane, marriage was not a storybook escape. It was a transaction, a way to avoid being sent back to the institution, a way to finally belong somewhere, if only on paper. In later interviews, Dougherty would remember her as eager to please, always worried about doing things right. She cooked, cleaned, and tried to be the perfect wife, even as her own dreams flickered quietly in the background. The decision was not made out of love or youthful rebellion, but out of necessity. For a girl who had spent her life adapting to survive, this was just another performance. one that traded the uncertainty of foster homes for the predictability of domestic life. But even in this new role, the longing for something more, something of her own, never truly disappeared. The door to Hollywood and to the world's gaze waited just around the corner. In 1946, a contract with 20th Century Fox placed Norma Jeane under the control of one of Hollywood's most powerful publicity machines. Studio memos dictated nearly every aspect of her transformation. The first change was her name. Ben Lyon, a Fox executive, suggested Marilyn after a popular Broadway actress, and Monroe came from her grandmother's surname. Norma Jeane signed her new name on a studio contract, and Marilyn Monroe became a legal identity, one owned as much by the studio as by the woman herself. Physical changes followed, each step recorded in internal correspondence. Hair was bleached to a uniform platinum shade, with roots checked weekly by the makeup department. Diet plans and exercise regimens arrived with her call sheets. Wardrobe designers measured her for custom-fitted dresses, each chosen to accentuate curves and to project innocence or allure, depending on the campaign. Voice coaches trained her to speak in a higher, breathier register, softening any trace of her original accent. Even her walk was choreographed, with notes on how to sway or pause for photographers. Publicity teams wrote her biography, omitting orphanage years and early marriage. Instead, press releases described a cheerful, wholesome newcomer, a natural blonde with a sunny disposition. Studio contracts included strict morality clauses, giving executives the right to suspend her for any behavior deemed unfit for their brand. Photographers were assigned to stunt candid moments, reinforcing the image of a carefree, desirable starlet. Every appearance, every smile, every word was shaped to fit a marketable fantasy. The woman who once performed to please foster parents now performed for the world, her survival skills repackaged as a public commodity. In New York, Marilyn Monroe sat quietly among students at the actor's studio, her notebook open, her eyes fixed on Lee Strasberg as he spoke about truth in performance. The year was 1955. She had left behind the studio's tight grip, determined to become more than a starlet in a sequined dress. Strasberg, known for his demanding approach, watched as Marilyn struggled through scenes, her voice trembling at first, but growing steadier with each attempt. She studied Chekhov, O'Neill, and Tennessee Williams, scribbling notes in the margins of worn scripts. Those who dismissed her as a manufactured product never saw the hours she spent rehearsing, or the rows of books that lined her shelves, poetry by Whitman, novels by Joyce, treatises on psychology and philosophy. That same winter, Marilyn Monroe Productions was incorporated on January the 7th. The company letterhead bore her name in bold black type, a declaration of independence few actresses dared to make. With Milton Green, she planned projects that would let her choose her own scripts and her own directors. The trade press called it a gamble. For Marilyn, it was a lifeline. The results soon appeared on screen. In 1956, she played Cherie in Bus Stop, abandoning glamour for a raw, vulnerable performance. Critics who once called her a cartoon now wrote of her unexpected depth. 3 years later, in Some Like It Hot, she delivered a comic performance that shimmered with intelligence and sadness. By the time The Misfits reached theaters in 1961, her name was attached not just as a star, but as a producer and creative force. Each role was proof. Marilyn Monroe was not a joke or a product. She was an artist determined to be seen for who she really was. Studio medicine in Hollywood in the 1950s was a quiet force behind the scenes. Doctors, sometimes hired directly by the studios, became as much a part of production as directors or makeup artists. Barbiturates, tranquilizers, and amphetamines were dispensed not as a last resort, but as routine tools to keep actors on schedule, helping them sleep, wake up, or steady their nerves before a demanding scene. For women especially, prescriptions were a response to everything from exhaustion to anxiety, all in service of maintaining a flawless image. Marilyn's medical files, though incomplete, reveal a pattern: pills for insomnia, more pills for stress, and new prescriptions when the old ones stopped working. These were not secret or shameful. They were standard practice, woven into the fabric of the industry. The same system that controlled her scripts and contracts also managed her body, one prescription at a time. By the early 1960s, headlines began to turn against her. Trade papers and gossip columns ran stories about missed call times and costly delays on sets like The Misfits and Something's Got to Give. Studio memos leaked to The Hollywood Reporter described hours lost, crews waiting, and directors growing impatient. Variety calculated the mounting costs, while columnists like Hedda Hopper and Luella Parsons painted her as a problem, an exasperating child, a liability. Each late arrival or absence became public proof that Marilyn was unstable, unprofessional, or simply ungrateful. The reality was chronic illness, exhaustion, and the toll of constant scrutiny, and it was rarely mentioned. Instead, her struggles were reduced to a label: difficult. In the glare of the entertainment press, her pain was recast as a personal failing, and the woman at the center of it all grew more isolated with every headline. Even now, industries still trade on women's images while disregarding their voices. As new generations revisit old stories, the demand for respect, beyond admiration, grows louder. True understanding starts when we see the person, not just the icon. The face endures, but the real legacy is how we choose to listen.